Kendra, and this is Hooked by Happenstance Makes Monday, episode number 32, Training. So, it's been a little over 2 weeks since I've talked to you. Today is Tuesday. It's daylight though, look, it's not at night. So, theoretically you'll see things a little better, I don't know. But this was the first good opportunity I had to film. Last I talked to you, I was about to prepare to go see my parents in California by train. And so I did that. And I have lots of things to show that I worked on my trip and in the time since the last episode. So I figure we'll begin today by discussing our word of the day, which is training, which I have on my computer over here. So training, according to Google, is a noun meaning the action of teaching a person or animal a particular skill or type of behavior. The second definition is the action of undertaking a course of exercise and diet in preparation for a sporting event. So I like to add additional definition, which is training, as in traveling by train. I was training my way to California and back. And thus I had 30-some hours at a fail swoop to work on my projects, and now I get to share them all with you. Now, the reason why the athletic type of training and stuff comes into play mostly has to do with socks, which I will talk about here in just a second. But I have certainly been trying to train myself to make good crochet socks. And don't let people tell you it is not possible, because it is, I think, and it is quite enjoyable as well. My throat is also a bit scratchy, so there might be a little bit more sipping of coffee than usual. We'll see. So, we will begin with the first thing that I finished, which is not socks. I worked a lot on my trip with different patterns that Peachlet had picked for me in my Let Peachlet Pick series. I let her pick all my things to take with me on my trip, and she did a good job for, you know, a little fiber being, or I did a good job deciding off of the things that she picked. And so the first thing that she picked was a burnout pop, and I decided to make, out of one burnout pop, this here, which is the Desert Wind Triangle Shawl by the Make Do crew. You can find it under that name on Ravelry. It will link you to their blog. And it just made this really nice, super simple triangle shawl. I used a K-hook. And like I said, just the one skein of a burnout pop. And you can wear it like over your shoulders like this. It actually has like really nice stretch, where I think during the springtime when it is warmer, that I will likely wear this just like cover my shoulders with certain things, or with a tank top or something. And it definitely has ends that are long enough that you can tie them. But for this time of year, the way that I've most been enjoying wearing it, and I wore it the other day, is in the front like a bandana cowl. Which I know lots of people like this look for like fashionable reasons. I really like it because I just feel, especially if I'm starting to get a little sick or something, I just really like to have some warmth like right on my chest. I find it really cozy and nice. So that is this shawl, and this worked up super quick. So I left on the train on Monday night. So I started this while I was at my uncle's. I started it probably, I don't know, 10:30, 11 o'clock on Monday night. And I finished it Tuesday afternoon on the train out to California. So that is the Desert Winds Triangle Shawl. The next thing that I worked on the train out to California was some socks. So I'm going to carefully pluck the book out from under my copy. I got this book, which is Step Into Crochet by Ron Strong. I ordered it with some Christmas money because I had seen the patterns and they just looked better than every other crochet sock pattern I've seen. A lot of crochet sock patterns look like slippers to me, or like booties. They don't look like socks. And I think that is where the misconception comes from people in general, and knitters specifically, that you cannot possibly crochet good socks. And if you know me at all, you know that when people tell me I can't do things, I want to a lot. So I really wanted to find a way to make good crochet socks, because it was the one thing I had yet to kind of, not master, but like really get decent at in crochet. So I decided to make the Gorman Street Toe-Up Sock from this book, Step Into Crochet. I highly recommend this book, and I am not a book pattern person. I also, I'm not a hoarder of patterns like some people are. I find patterns that I want to make at a given time. I procure them, I make them, and then I either like decide that I like them and I will make them again, or I guess some of them do sit in digital files on my computer. But I am not a big fan of paying for patterns. I am not a big fan of just having patterns for the sake of having them. But this book is well worth the money. It is an interweave crochet book, so it was $22.99 cover price. I think I got it on sale though. I don't think I spent that much, but I might have. It would definitely be worth the $23 though, to be honest. And I'm quite frugal. So, Gorman Street Toe Up Socks. I decided to make mine out of some Red Heart and Soul, which I have had in stash forever, and I made a few changes to the pattern. So, the pattern calls for using a C hook. When I did my gauge swatch, it brought me up to a D, and that turned out to be not only a nice look, but a really comfortable like hook to use with the yarn. I did make some changes to the toe. In the pattern, the toe is more pointed, and my toes are not pointy. So I just adjusted my measurements to flatten the toe and start it like later in the pattern. Then you work your toe and everything. I also made some adjustments to the heel because it also had a pointier heel, and my heels are very kind of broad and flat as opposed to being pointed. So I made adjustments there. And then other than that, I basically just followed the pattern. Now here I have 2 socks. I have made 3 of these socks total. And I only have 2 to show for it. How does that work? Well, I used the Red Heart and Soul in, this is faded denim, by the way, the colorway. It comes in 50-gram balls. So I had 2 balls with me to make my socks. So I make the first one, I start the toe, and then I worked part of the foot. And I tried it on the train, and I just felt like the toe was way too pointy on my foot. And there was like this little thing, like a little elf toe hanging off the front, and I didn't like that. So I did not want to like immediately frog the sock because I put a lot of work into it. So I put that ball aside, and I kind of thought I knew what I needed to do to change up the toe, so I started the second ball using those changes. So I worked that part, and I was happy with it. So then I made an entire, started working on the foot. Yeah. Started working on the foot, and I was happy enough with that. So I just finished the rest of the way, finished the foot, did the heel, figured out as I put the heel in, I worked up and did all the way to the cuff. And then I didn't like the heel had this big like chunk kind of hanging off the back, which was making me unhappy. So then I pick up the one that I had started the toe on that I had put aside, and I frogged it, starting over with the new like chain number and everything. And I worked through the toe, and I thought I knew the changes I needed to make in the foot and the heel to make it fit my foot. So I figured those changes weren't going to be huge, and they wouldn't make a huge difference if I had 2 socks that were slightly mismatched, whatever. Well, when I made those changes and tried it on, it fit so good, I could no longer stand the first sock. So, I had a second sock that was all done. I went back to the first sock, and to my father's dismay, well, he got to watch me do it because he thought that I could magically just, like, take out rows, which is not possible in crochet. So, I frogged the cuff, the heel, all the way back into the foot section, removed some foot, then did the whole heel over again using some different measurements and finished the sock. So basically I made a whole extra sock in this process that I have nothing to show for, except I have a pair of nicely fitting socks to show for it. And I found there's really just like no good way to show them. They look kind of icky, but they look really cute on. So those socks actually got finished after I returned back to Kansas because I worked on them a ton while I was in California. They just didn't get done. But I'm very happy with the result. Now, when I went to get on the train to come home, I pulled out the project bag that was on the top, and it happened to contain these mitts. Now, one mitt had been done when I left. It didn't have its ends woven in or like the cuff put together, but it was done. The second one, I just started the cuff ribbing. So, pulled it out and went to work. Now, these are of my own design. They did, however, start as a sock pattern from New Methods in Crochet Socks, something like that. The other Ron Strong book that I got for Christmas. But I had done the ribbing and started the sock portion, which they were cuffed down. And when I put them on my hand, they fit so good that I was like, oh my gosh, these need to be mitts. So I had done the one before I left, but I had not woven everything in. So I finished the cuff and did the hand part, left the space for the thumb, finished all the way. And then I actually ended up putting the thumb in when I got home because I was having issues picking up the stitches to put the thumb where it went on the train with it like bouncing around and the weird lighting and stuff. So that's waited until I got home. But the cool thing about these mitts is they make lovely fingerless mitts, and I think they're so, so pretty. But the way that I made them, the top has this ribbing, so they can be unrolled. And to roll them, I have to take them off, but to unroll them, they go like that, and they basically cover my hands, and I can't actually pull my hands in, so my fingers are fully covered. So like if I'm out in the wind and stuff, they provide nice protection, and they're so like cozy, and they fit nice, and they're a nice weight though that they will fit nicely in the pocket of my coat, which is where they're going to go and live now that I've shown them to you. These are made out of a mill end bag of yarn from Joann's, so I don't really know what they are, but I also used a D-hook, so apparently I'm finding that for this kind of commercial weight sock yarn, a D-hook is like my happy place. So play around with that, figure out what you like, and yeah, basically these are socks that don't have a toe, and I threw a thumb in instead of a heel, which, you know, is basically all mitts are. So I'm very, very happy with those, and I'm looking forward to getting to wear them now that I've got to show you. The next thing that I worked on the train, Peachel had assigned me before some of the other projects I worked on, but it just took me a while to get to them. This is a poncho, and it is made out of Yarn Bee Wonder Wool in the color Sea Storm. I had 2 skeins of this, which had been yarn ferried to me by my husband's coworker. And I decided to use a free pattern by Kim Guzman, which you can find at crochetkim.com. It is called the Stripey Poncho, is what hers was called. But again, because I'm me, I made changes because that's just what I do. So I only had the 2 skeins of yarn to work with, so I was kind of limited in what I could do, like how far I could go. But I knew based on her dimensions, because she had dimensions on there for a small and a medium size, that the medium was not going to be big enough for the size person I am. It was not going to be like wide enough to like drape down my arm and stuff and not make it look like big lady tiny shawl. So I decided to add on and made this beginning, the initial chain and strip, I made longer. Then I forget how many I added off of her pattern, but I ended up with 19 repeats of the stitch pattern. And then it was just super easy. I used an L hook, which unfortunately meant I had to use one of my not cushy hooks because the only L I have is a plain metal boy hook, and I have not done anything to the handle yet, but it probably will happen soon. So I just went and went until I had completed the pattern, which made just a big giant rectangle, and I used up all of the yarn that I had. Then it explains in her pattern how you like hold the end against the other part to make a poncho, which will wrap around your neck. Because I made my strip wider and it was also somewhat shorter, if I attached it the way that she told you to, my neck like didn't fit in it very well, and it was like real tight up against my neck, and I didn't like that. But I was happy with the width of the strip. So what I did is I just offset everything. These actually should continue based in pattern, and it should get connected up here. And this should be my tiny little neck hole. But that was not enough neck for me, so I just didn't sew it all the way up. And I made it so that you can just kind of fold the neck over and you get this kind of jaunty little opening to your poncho, which I think actually looks quite stylish. But it also has a little bit of, I don't know, when I wear it, which you'll see in other videos in the future, I'm just not wearing it today, it's a little boring over here or over here. Like, it just needs a little something up top to make the neckline like really pop. So I found a solution. The solution was to make this flower, which I still need to get a back for it. I can't find my good pins for doing that, so I need to buy another package. But this is based on the Be Hooked, has a pattern for a popcorn stitch flower, which I made using some of this Karen Simply Soft Party in the color Chocolate Sparkle. I got this on clearance at our Walmart a while ago. It was like real cheap, real cheap. And this is already fairly inexpensive. So I made up this flower. I did it super quick the other night while I was on a VKN. It took me a while to remember where I had seen the pattern. I was having that problem where, you know, you've seen a pattern on Ravelry and you know where it is, kind of, and then you go back to find it and you're like, no, I know this exists, and you can picture it in your head, but you can't find it. Well, I eventually found it. I had been looking in the wrong category. But I made the flower. It's going to go in a little pin, and then it can either go like over here, or what's super cute when I was trying it on the other day is if it goes like over here, and this little neck bit kind of pokes down a little more when it's on. So you'll get to see it in the future, but I think it looks quite snazzy, and I'm looking forward to wearing it. I don't have a lot of things in that color, but I think that it is a nice color. Like, I don't know why I don't have things in that color. It's just not where I tend to drift, but I like it. And the final thing that I have completed this week is this. I made this on the train ride home. After I finished the poncho, it was like, I don't know, dinner time, a little after, and so I started in on this, which is the Sunset Sail shawl, and I forget who it's by. I will put it on the screen, but it is a free pattern that you can find on Ravelry, and I've had it printed out forever to make. I was going to make it for somebody a while ago, and I just never did, so I decided to make them for myself. I made this out of some more yarn that Peachlet picked that I had been yarn fairied. This is the, I love this yarn Prince in the color Gelato, and then the blue is Red Heart Super Saver, and I think it's the color Pool. And I used a K-hook for this as well, and I used the striped variation of the pattern. It's a nice pattern, and it becomes like you know what you're doing, but I still had to look at the pattern a lot, in part because I was only half paying attention because I was listening to podcasts and other things. So it wasn't that I didn't know how to do it. It was one of those patterns where you just have to keep looking at which row am I on to remind yourself which of the things that you're doing, not that you can't remember what things to do, if that makes sense. So it makes this nice like sail shape, and I chose to do the scalloped edge trim. You can do an edging that has like picos in it, but I just didn't think it was going to lay nice with this particular yarn, and there's also a beaded edging option. So you can obviously wear this a number of different ways. You could just wear it like around and just kind of set it on your shoulders. You could brooch it. I had it on for just a little while the other day, and I think the way I might end up wearing it is kind of with this bit in the front, and then you pop this little piece over your shoulder, and then bring the short tail forward, and obviously zhuzh to your heart's content, and then maybe even throw a brooch in it. But it has this interesting shape, and I was interested in how the colors turned out. I haven't played with it very much since I got home, but it'll definitely be something I think I will play with more, especially as the weather warms up just a scooch here, and my options of what to wear with it kind of go up. So it was fun to work with this color, though. The I Love This Yarn Prince this is the second one that I've used. I have one more skein that I have been yarn fairied, and they have a nice color progression. I enjoyed it. So that is everything that I have finished. Now on to the things that I still have on my hook. The first thing that is still on my hook is another thing that Peachlet assigned me. She picked a bag of Mill End gray yarn that I got at Joann's a while ago on a really good sale. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it, but I knew I wanted to make a cardigan, and I decided to make the Reminisce cardigan by Heidi May of the Velvet Acorn. I know, you're probably sick of hearing me say if I made a cardigan, it is probably a Heidi May Velvet Acorn design, but I am using that mystery yarn and a size H 5.0 millimeter hook. And here is my current progress. Now, when I left California, I had done down most of the way down the yoke, but I hadn't yet put in the sleeve split. I actually did that yesterday. I worked on this a lot yesterday. So here is the cardigan as it stands. I just started putting in a sleeve last night. I'm not done with the body, but I am working. Because I'm using mill ends, I work with a limited amount of yarn, so I decided I'd put in the sleeves at least down to the part that has like the ribbing and the hand. This pattern has a unique thing where there's like a wrist ribbing bit that also has a thumb gusset that you can then put your thumb through, and it makes it like, you know, one of those shirts where you stick your thumbs out, and I think it looks really cool. So my goal is probably to do that unless I find that I have the exact amount of yarn if I don't. So right now I'm working down to the ribbing on the sleeve, just to see how much that uses up, and then I'll decide how much of the body to do in this yarn, because I might have to supplement with another yarn. I don't know yet. But I tried it on last night. I probably could have gotten away with making one size smaller. I am making the extra large. Yes, I'm making the extra large. I probably could have gotten away with making a large, but I followed her directions for positive ease and stuff, and I think this will be super wearable, and this will be nice that I can actually wear it with something that's a little thick underneath it, which is exactly what I really need in a sweater. So I'm just chugging away on this. I really would like to get it done. It is so soft. I don't have any clue what this yarn is, but it's lovely. It did, however, I understood why it was in the mill ends. I had looked at it originally, and it looked like there were no issues with it. Like, why is this here? Skeiner had clearly had issues, and instead of skeining like one piece of yarn at a time, it had somehow plied 3 strands of the already plied yarn together, and then it had skeined almost an entire skein of that, except the outside of the skein had all been skeined just fine with the single piece of yarn. So I had gotten a couple inches into the sweater, and all of a sudden my yarn, which I had been unraveling from the outside, was 3 strands of yarn in one spot. So I spent like an afternoon at my parents' house unraveling and rolling up balls of yarn. So I have more small balls than I had thought. I only had 3 balls total, and now I have like 10. But they, I mean, it's the same amount of yarn, and I weighed it all, and I think I'm going to have enough to get through most of the sweater. Like I said, I might need to supplement and do the ribbing and the, like the button band in a different yarn. I haven't decided. So I'm just going to go with this as far as I can, and then I'll have to get creative. Next thing on my hook, I had not intended to make this week at all. It is this eyeball. So I was talking to a friend the other day, and she was really interested in, apparently there's a new Stephen West eyeball shawl, which since I have done this, I have now seen better, but she was really interested in it. But she wanted to crochet one and was not happy with her option she had found online for crochet patterns for like an eyeball shawl. And so I was trying to explain to her how it would be really easy for her to just make her own. She just has to make the eyeball. And she was not understanding me explaining how you would do the math to make the almond shape. So while I was talking to her, just started working this up to test it out, to make sure that my thought process was right. And it was. So I now have this eyeball, which is clearly not big enough for an adult eyeball shawl, but this is definitely like a kid size of one, as I have an idea. It's in process. But I also kind of like this eyeball. Making this has actually given me a number of other ideas that involve eyeballs. The eyeball shawl itself, I don't know that it's my thing, but it's now becoming, as I said before, it's now becoming a thing that I'm working on, just because, I don't know, it's something that I'm doing right now, but I don't know that I would ever wear one. But anyways, this is black Red Heart with Love. This is the color Macaw in Red Heart Super Saver, and then some white Super Saver. And I'm going to edge the eye probably in this Big Twist value in the color Soft Gray to kind of go around the eye. And then there's a little bit coming up that's probably going to involve this orchid color. So, or light orchid, but it's light orchid. So we'll see what I come up with this. But it was one of those things where it kind of started as a conversation, and then the next thing I know, it's become a piece of crochet. So I'm happy with it. I've been writing down the pattern as I go, so it is replicatable, and my next step, I think, is to try and size it up, because that is ultimately what needs to happen. This was just me playing around with the math at a small scale, like a medium scale. I knew I could have done it smaller, but I wanted to try it kind of a mid-size just to play with things, because sometimes we just need to play, right? Now, that same friend is working on another sock out of the Step Into Crochet book by Ron Strong, and she is working on a pair of the pull-in socks, which, as indicated in this, they're also the ones on the front here, they are striped. She is not striping hers, and I am making a pair as well, and I am not striping mine either. I am just using 2 skeins of Red Heart, again, Red Heart, Heart and Soul, and these are in the colorway Spring Stripe. And I am making mine just straight, one color. Got the toe in and the foot I'm working on, and I'm almost, I guess I just started the gusset, so these will be done pretty quick. These are going to be like, they're short socks. They don't go up very high up your calf. That's just the way the pattern's written. But I'm very happy with how they're turning out, and they're super cute on, and they worked up real quick because they've got lace on the top, so that obviously makes things go faster because there's not as many stitches. But I'm happy with the bottom, how it's turned out, and that's, you know, full. So the pull-in socks actually factored into my training as the word for my week. I ultimately wanted to make those socks. However, I had never made, like, what I think of as good crochet socks before. I'd always made, I don't know, the slipper socks that I don't know. I personally find parts of them to look kind of tacky. They certainly don't feel as good on your feet. So yeah, I never made pretty socks before, but now I have, and so I'm excited about that. But I had to train myself in like how to do that. It's not something that immediately makes sense, and I just had to figure out the proportioning too, because like I said, I made a lot of changes to that first sock to kind of come up with a recipe that fit me, and I had to be willing to do it incrementally. So I was looking at it as I'm teaching myself to make socks, which is part of the reason why I wasn't super upset when I tore out my socks so many times, because I'm teaching myself to do it. It's not like I just have this expectation that the sock is going to fly off the hook and it's going to be right as written to pattern, because socks are not like that. Patterns do not fit all people. You have to come up with your recipe, and then you can add patterns on top of that recipe. So now that I've gone through that training process, I think that I can tackle most any sock without too much difficulty. But we'll see. I might change my mind here, and I will definitely let you know how the process goes. But that is everything for this week. I got a lot of stuff done, and I got a lot of stuff finished, and everything I've showed you that's done, the ends are even all woven in on. So that is not too bad, and still a little out of character. It did take me a little longer than the last batch of stuff I did, but my goodness, I am getting to be an end weaving queen. It does help. I've been weaving in ends a lot of times when I'm either watching YouTube videos or chatting with friends, because it's good, super mindless. So you do need something to keep you busy, especially with like that sunset sail shawl with all of the stripes. There was a lot of ends to weave in, but it went fairly quickly. So that is it. I shall see you all next time. Thanks for joining me. Bye!